So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of Mindshifters Radio. Today is Wednesday, September the 22nd, 2021, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1, and that puts you into queue to talk to us. And we'd love to hear your comments and questions because that makes this your show. While we're waiting on Michael to get dialed in, Susan, I'm going to turn your mic back on. Who is this lady that you're talking about, Mira who?
Rubin, R-U-B-I-N.
Okay, thank you. I was just going to put her
she has a website
in the notes.
I'm sure you. Good, yeah.
Yeah. So welcome, Michael.
Thank you, dear heart. I think I heard Susan's voice there. How are you, young lady?
I am better than I should be, Michael. It's all
No,
your fault.
You're probably just perfect right the way you are.
How are you?
You know, the truth is, as we do our work, we get to the point where we can be in the deepest muddle, mire, mess, muck that anybody could be in, and love and serenity stay present. Now, that's the end result of the work. That's what it's... Well, that's what's supposed to happen. That's the idea of doing it. Because, and recognize that most of the world thinks that their muck and their mire and their muddle and their pain and their trauma and their drama and their anxiety and their fear and their rage and their guilt are all coming from the outside. And none of it's true. When you start working to remove it from the inside and it's gone, then it's gone. There's no reason to have it in the world.
Well,
so congratulations.
Well, I say it's your fault. You said a couple of things about Jacob that I can't even remember. But Jacob called last night, and he swung into a rant and rage about political correctness and how tiresome it is, and he was going on and on about how he doesn't like school. And I was rejoicing because that's my boy. That's what he'd been doing before he started on the drugs. He was complaining about everything, and he even said that he's been taking those drugs in order to fit in with his classmates who are all doing it. He wanted to be part of the gang. He's decided this is just baloney. He's not going to do it anymore. I hope this sticks. But like my Jacob came back. He was back already.
Sweet.
And we had a great talk. And we talked about the definition of humility that I think you said on the show, or Dr. Tim, to see the highest and best in everyone and to operate from that stance.
Right.
And he said, I'm going to do that. I've been doing it. I think I've been doing it, but now I'm aware of doing it, and I'm going to do it. And I said, you start the ball rolling. He said, everybody's so mean. People bully people. They're critical. Everybody's scared. And he said, I can be the one to start the ball rolling toward kindness, being kind. And he just sounded so much better.
Sweet.
Man, and then the other thing you said about the Sudanese woman, you said, use touch, use the Avicen. Think about the trauma she's been through. I was thinking about my trauma of having my introverted life interrupted. All of a sudden, the focus has shifted, and I'm ready to bring her in. So you did two great things yesterday, Michael, and you probably didn't even realize it.
No, you did it. You're the one whose mind changed.
No, you did it.
Mine changed.
Well, anyway, it helped a lot.
There's a wonderful story about Michelangelo and some admirers standing there looking at the statue of David. And he's just like, how is that even possible? And Michelangelo said, David was always in the piece of granite. I just took my hammer and chisel and removed what wasn't him. That's what forgiveness is. It's the hammer and chisel with which you remove what isn't you. And what isn't you is like fear and rage and guilt and grief. What is you is a state of being called love. And that's the truth for all of us, no matter how bizarre and off the wall and insane we seem to be. And so the hammer and chisel is looking at the thought disorders, chiseling, forgiving, removing those thought disorders, and returning simply to the truth of who we are. You know, that the passage in the Course, you've heard me read it several times, it says, and it is around the whole idea of words, and it says it'd be interesting if you were asked to take a teaching function and yet forego the words of darkness, and that you need intervals, and you had an interval yesterday in which you go into the light and then return to the darkness and use the words that the world of darkness rules, not because you believe them, but as a way to proclaim their fallibility, as a way to proclaim their fraud and get free of them. And that's basically all we did yesterday, all you did yesterday, your willingness to step into it. And, of course, the fruit of the work you've been doing for several years now with this work and all the other work you've done for decades. So congratulations.
Thanks.
'Tis pretty awesome. 'Tis pretty awesome. And, you know, the whole idea of the first century Aramaic forgiveness process is it takes away, it does nothing but remove the illusion, the thought disorders. And it's a quantum leap different and way beyond anything that's ever been presented in the English language about forgiveness to date, as far as I know, and anything I've been able to find. And, you know, many people think of forgiveness in the domain of theology. It doesn't belong in the domain of theology. It's pure physics. It's physiology. It's psychology. It's a tool with which deep, pure, and profound genetic repair is carried out. So it's the hammer and chisel, the tool set with which we remove the unconscious impulses of fear and hate and greed and the self-medicating drug of rage that the world uses so much. So, you know, each of us has a work we need to sink into, and I just, you know, I'm appreciative of you and delighted to watch how willing you are to just sink in each time another layer comes up, sink into the next level of your own work, perhaps starting the conversation out with, oh, look what's happening out there, but your willingness to just go back in and face those culturally imposed generations of self-deception and getting rid of the, you know, forgiveness basically frees us from those internal shards of fear and pain, hostility, greed that obscure the truth of who we are. And when we're loosed from the hostility and greed that obscure that true human life, that ever-repeating past that most everybody lives in, their why is this happening to me again, the courage to do the work of forgiveness, it removes the veneer of civility, what passes, you know, the politically correct, and allows us to face what's hidden in the domains of the unconscious. And as you do that, you enter into conscious co-creation rather than unconscious. And, you know, there's a reward for that. To he that overcomes. To she that overcomes.
Michael, I've got a question. We talk about carbon-based memory and what's in the cells too, and the cells, the DNA has a memory, and ancestral trauma is passed down. Good things too, I trust. Is it possible to work starting with the cell, to heal the cell without knowing anything about the trauma, but just assuming trauma's there, and heal from
Absolutely.
the bottom up?
Absolutely. Someone who's an alcoholic, a drug addict, a food junkie, and changes their dietary regimen, they're going to be, you know, with no thought of ever, I'm going to deal with my life, but all of those things being the things that drive down our vitality and our strength and our capacity to operate that hammer and chisel of Michelangelo, the forgiveness chisel. Those things, just by doing those things, you vitalize yourself, and automatically the energy starts to flow. I was talking to someone yesterday who has been using the Avicen for about, I think, a year now, close to a year. And she was saying that what she's noticing when she's got her hand in the Avicen now is that all of these memories, all of these things that she's recalling that she had no memory of. You know, this is a woman who's in her 70s, actually almost in her 80s. It's a woman I told you who had polio as a child, post-polio syndrome in her shoulder. She had so much pain in her shoulder she couldn't pick up a glass of water, and after 12 weeks on the Avicen, she was able to pack up her house, load the boxes in her car, and move them. And what she's noticing, you know, the long term, is that as she's laying there with the Avicen with her hand in it, that she's processing all these memories just coming forward. And so, yeah, anything you do on any level, you know, when they said be holy, it didn't mean get down on your hands and fold, or get down on your knees and fold your hands. That isn't holy. It's whole. It's working on every level, and on any and every level that you improve, you're going to move the whole life form forward, whatever it is. Because if we're at the full physical vitality, that is, the nutrition's fully there, you can't hold on to the garbage. It just can't stay in the field. And you know, all we have to do is look around at the popularity of the drugs that are pushed in, you know, virtually every corner and every restaurant. Let's just take that one, caffeine. And everybody who uses it on a daily basis shuts down the flow of information within their minds. And just give up coffee. And all of a sudden things will start to move and process. And the more things you're inclined to do to vitalize yourself, the more and deeper your process is going to be. So this one's talking about how she's just having these early memories come up. She's recalling things that she totally shut out of her mind and out of her life. So each aspect that we improve, physical, mental, emotional, relational, financial, is going to tend to strengthen every other aspect and uplift. That would be my take.
Well, that makes total sense. Our teacher in Vedanta years ago, a Swami who lived in New York, used to say, picture yourself as a fortress. I've probably said this on the show before. You have this fortress, and it's surrounded with soldiers standing facing outward, shoulder to shoulder. All you have to do is make friends with one of those soldiers, and you're in. Just start somewhere. And that's what basically I think what you're saying.
That's it.
I wish I understood. I went to see a naturopath the other day because of my sleep difficulties, and we ended up having a discussion, and I brought her all the supplements that I take in a bag, and she looked at this and she said, well, you don't need this, but you do need that. And she does muscle testing, and I'm not sensitive that way. I don't think I can discern what's good and what's not. I wouldn't trust myself, but she does. And it just seems to me some people are really, oops, there's my doorbell, really, really gifted. Hang on, Michael.
Sure.
All right, I'm here.
Okay.
I lost.
So you're saying some people are gifted in doing things like muscle testing.
Yeah. Right. So we have to go to them to find out who we are and stuff. Right. Have you ever done that?
Mm-hmm. You know, I've done some training in muscle testing, and it wasn't my cup of tea. I know some people who are very good at it and seem to get very good results. And I know some people who do it and they're always telegraphing the results they expect, so they get the results that they expect. And that I don't think is valid. But there are some people I think use it quite validly.
Well, that's what I would be doing. Yeah, that's what I would be doing. Is my brain would be too involved. So anyway.
What was that? Who was it that told us to get our bloated nothingness out of the way?
My bloated nothingness is right in there. Okay.
Well, it sounds like you're doing pretty good, young lady, and inspiring that young man, and opening a space with him, and it sounds like he's opened a space for you as well, and that's the the mutual support of community and people doing the work together. So that's sweet to hear that report with him.
Thanks.
And it sounds like there might be an opening for him to have more and more of the tools. Give him that sympathetic, parasympathetic exercise. Simple stuff like that can make the world of difference.
Is that the one you said would put your hand over your ear and tip your head and look up? Is that the one?
Yeah. You take your, start out in either your right or your left hand. If you use your right hand, put it over top of your head. Just rest your fingers on your head, just above your ear, and you pull your head down gently, just comfortably. Pull the head down to the right as far as it will comfortably go. And as you do that, look up with your eyes way up and to the left as though you're trying to look up and out through the top of your head. And breathe and let your whole body blow up like a bubble, so you're stretching everything. Big breath. And a couple of breaths like that. If the neck loosens, you can pull the head down a little further. Again, keeping the eyes looking up as though they're trying to look up through the top of the head. And then do the same on the other side. Go to the center, relax a little bit. Put the fingers of the left hand just over the top of the head, so they're just above the ear, resting on the head. And so you've got a lever there. You pull your head over towards your left shoulder, as far as it will comfortably go. Breathe, body blows up like a bubble, so everything stretches, and you look up to the right, as though you're trying to look up through the top of your head with your eyes, both eyes pointed up that way. Big breath. Let everything stretch and open. That tends to move people from the sympathetic dominant state, which is survival, into the parasympathetic dominant state, which is thrival.
Thrival, I love it. Does that have to
thrival
do with
instead of
the
survival. Say again?
Vagus nerve?
Opens the vagus nerve, yes.
Okay. I don't know what the vagus nerve is, but I told my Pilates students how to do it.
Well, the vagus nerve, it's called vagus. The word vagus means wandering. And if you look up on the internet, you'll see that it wanders. I mean, it's one of the longest nerves in the body, and it wanders throughout the whole torso especially. It comes out of the brain and through the whole torso and innervates all of the important thriving functions of the body: digestion, cell repair, respiration, the function of the visceral organs, basically. And when we're cut off from that, because we're in survival mode, we don't need to digest when there's a lion coming at us. We want all the energy to go with what gets me out of the lion's path, and that's that sympathetic dominant state. It's kind of a continuum. You're not in one or the other. They're a continuum.
Yeah.
But if people lean over toward the sympathetic dominant, then the flow, the nerve impulse to all of those organs, including parts of the brain and the colon, they just don't get innervation. And they don't function very well. So this physiologically stretches them, that nerve, and opens the pathway and tends to shift out of the sympathetic dominant state into the parasympathetic dominant state, where all of a sudden those things that cause your body to thrive are fed abundantly. Nerve flow, blood flow, energy, and everything changes, everything shifts. It opens a space for processing the drama and trauma, because there's, in this continuum from sympathetic to parasympathetic, there's also a third state of the nervous system, and that's freeze. And that's when people just I mean, they literally physiologically can't take a step, and behaviorally they can't do anything. They're just, people will look at someone in that state. What's wrong with you? Why don't you just do something? There's no nerve flow. They can't do anything in that freeze state. And so what that exercise does is just a simple exercise for moving the structure toward that parasympathetic and opening, stretching and allowing the nerve flow to move through the vagus nerve so that everything that vagus nerve innervates is innervated. And we tend to move into thrive mode or thrival instead of survival or freeze. And that's another one of those things. If you look at, we can improve nutrition. We stop using drugs, and we start eating food that has, actual nutrition in it, has enzymes and minerals, and has what we need. A body that's minerally or nutritionally deficient can't function properly. So this is just one more of those factors. I don't know if you remember the intensive I talked about. I don't know for any given individual what factor is going to move them to the next level of vitality so that they can open and process whatever it is that they need to process. And so what I've worked to do, I realized this I don't even know, 40, 45 years ago. There are factors involved. It isn't if you do this, then healing will occur. There are factors. And, if you need to move your vitality 2 points, well, you can move your vitality 2 points from going from a total junk diet to a total live food diet. And that will really move some energy and change things. But the tendency will be for the pendulum to swing back if you make that great a shift in one area. But if you move your nutrition, a half a point, and you move your smiling, just the ability to smile changes physiology. You do something like this. Oh, there's another half a point. Oh, you turn down the drug. Well, I might have a drink with you tomorrow night, but tonight I'm going to pass on the alcohol. That could be another. And the next morning, this person wakes up and they've done 6 little things that are not so major that they're going to tend to swing back and smash against the wall in the other direction. If they got that 6-point shift from one thing, that the inertia would tend to just snap them back. But if they got it from 12 different things, then they tend better to be able to maintain it. And they might say, I don't know what happened, I didn't take that drink last night. Yeah, I did have that sprout salad. Yeah, I did that exercise where you put your hand over, just above your ear. And I woke up in the morning and all of a sudden there I was thinking about that horrible trauma that happened when I was 3, and I remember to breathe, and I breathed for about 20 minutes, and I got up, and wow, I felt so much better. Okay, tell me what you did to do that. Oh, I didn't have a drink last night. No. So people go, oh, it was the drink. So they'll stop drinking, but it won't make that change. So that's why in the intensive throughout this whole, the whole idea here, why this conversation's gone on for 10 years, is we're going to introduce every factor that we find. And we find new ones all the time, and I've been, ferreting them out for the last 45 or so years since I realized it's factors that make the difference. And people who are inertia-bound will tend not to do one big major thing. Once in a while somebody will do it, but then they'll tend to step back. But they'll do a number of small things, and that can make the difference.
That brings up a question. I remember Ramakrishna saying years ago, when he was on the planet in the 1800s, he said, it's okay to have a treat once in a while. Mm-hmm. Now, you're talking about doing incremental improvements, which makes a lot of sense. But what you're basically saying is between the incrementals, some of the old habits are still in there, or some of the old things that you do. The other day I had a dish of ice cream, and I really liked it. But I thought, I wonder how much ice cream I could get away with. It isn't that I'm going to stuff myself, but I thought, I can't do this black and white. If I go out to an ice cream place, and Pennsylvania's full of these homemade ice cream. So went with my grandson and my son and his wife and Tim, and we walked there, and I thought, no way, I'm not going to have ice cream. I am going to have ice cream, and I'm going to love it. But then I had this question that's been sitting around on the edge of the mind is, you know, is that all right? Silly little question.
Yeah, my offering would be absolutely yes. Again, doing one's work doesn't require perfection in any area. It especially doesn't require perfection in every area. And so you quote unquote fall off the wagon once in a while. So what? Jeannie made an awesome blueberry organic apple cobbler last night, and we had some oat milk ice cream on it. It was awesome.
Oh, good. I guess that was my question, and I should have just asked you outright, is do you ever do something like that?
Yes. I do it less and less. And we do something like that retreat once in a while, and we found that there's a particular store that has a pretty good apple pie that has a little bit of sugar in it, but not a whole lot. And so, you know, we'll do an apple pie every other week or so, and, you know, do a piece a night for 2 or 3 nights. And yeah, of course, we do that. You know, we don't have to live like hermits and the perfect symbol of, you know, doing everything right. All we have to do is make small incremental improvements that move us forward.
Yeah.
I can remember a time when I used to go in and I'd go into the grocery store, and, you know, they'd have these chocolate covered ice cream bars, and I would and they, you know, they were small ones, so I could rationalize, you know, there are only 5 of them in a package, so I'll go and eat them on the drive home. I don't do that anymore, but there was a time when I did. So, you know, we tend to improve and get better and better all the way around.
Right. I could say I do the same. Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
Oh. All right.
You know, they spoke to Yeshua, and he says, "Why do you call me perfect? What the heck are you talking about?" None of us is. Now, I know there's a faction of Christianity that wants to pretend he was the perfect one, but those people have no real interest in hearing what he said. They're interested in what their preacher interpreted and said. And if you show them the words that it's here, look, here are his words, and they're exact opposite of what the preacher. Well, yeah, but that's not what the preacher really meant. There's always an excuse. There's always a story about it, and so. But I suspect, you know, if he'd have had a grocery store around the corner every once in a while, he'd have snuck in there and got himself a brick of ice cream.
Yum. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Michael.
We have a friend who, and you may have heard me talk about this before, but we have a friend who's not actually a naturopath, but she might as well be. It's someone that I first connected with doing this work up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. 45 years ago. Maybe not quite that long ago. Anyway, she's a real food purist. She's written a couple of books on food, and she did this work way back when I first met her. And we kept in touch over the years. And then back, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, you've actually heard her on the show. 5 or 6 years ago, she came back to the work and really, really started to dig in and really use the tools. And she called me one day, and she was in healing crisis, and it was ice cream. And she's like, you know, I just don't eat that junk in the circles. We'd actually done a trainings together. She'd done a couple of my workshops, and we'd been in a couple of other trainings together. And in that circle, you know, the stuff that comes from a cow that they put in a package and call ice cream, the verbal link that's used for that one is it's called cow pus. And to help people to recognize that each state has a limit on how much pus they allow in milk and in cheese and in butter and in cream and in, you know, different dairy products. Each state has different limits of how much is allowed. And so, I mean, she was pretty much a purist. She's actually done the food program for an intensive on occasion, and she wouldn't touch that stuff, you know, in a million years. And she called me one day. She'd been doing some really deep work, and she's like, I don't know what's happened. I don't know what's going on. I've been in the grocery store, and I've been eating ice cream, and I just can't help myself. I'm just chowing down on this ice cream. It's like, well, what are you working on? Her father was a Middle Eastern, typical Middle Eastern abusive male, dismissive male toward females, including his daughter. And as a child, he was physically, mentally, and emotionally abusive. And so she had opened a layer of working through that. And it was pretty intense. So she said, I've been working on Dad, and, some of those issues. So, well, when you were a kid and after Dad did his abuse thing, what would he do? I was like, bingo. Oh, my God. In order to make up for his abuse and apologizing, he'd take me for ice cream. So here she is, the habit of every time Dad abuses her, his way of making it up is to take her out for ice cream. And here she is in that healing crisis. And remember, one of the, we talk about the symptoms of healing and the way you can tell that you're in a healing crisis rather than a disease process. And remember, the fourth one is, are you craving the drug you used when you experienced that trauma initially in order to suppress that trauma? And that's part of it, because, when you realize these are all energetic complexes, then, if the drug was the sugar and the congestion and the morphine, there's actually in cow's milk, there's morphine, chisel morphine. It's as real as the morphine people put in their arms as a drug. So if that was the drug that was used, then that energetic pattern is locked into the tissue structure with the trauma that happened at that point. And so when I'm ready to open up and take that energetic pattern out of the cell, out of the tissue, as it starts to move out, all of the energies that are linked to it are going to tend to start to move. And so people will tend to crave. Remember the symptoms of healing. How do you tell when you're in a healing process as opposed to a disease process when you're symptomatic? Well, on a physical level, healing looks like any kind of physical symptom you've ever had in low energy. On a mental level, it's any kind of negative thought you've ever had in confusion. On an emotional level, it's any kind of negative feeling you've ever had in depression. And when that energy starts to move, you ask yourself, so now, how do I tell? I've got all these symptoms. Am I in a healing process or a disease process? First question, am I doing more and more of the right things? Yes. Well, yeah, I had ice cream last night, but I used to do it 7 nights a week and 3 mornings a week. So yeah, I'm doing more and more of the right things. Had I hit a new level of vitality? Boy, I sure have. I woke up with, so much energy moving. Okay, so that's the second thing that says you're in a healing process. What's happening with your elimination? Oh, yeah. And we're talking about all of the eliminative channels. There tend to be an increase. And it might be more one eliminative channel than another. One that really disturbs people is, let's say, when pimples or boils or rashes start to come up. That's part of the healing process if I'm doing more and more of the right things. So there are 3 questions that you ask yourself, and then the fourth one is, am I craving the drug that I used when this issue initially happened? And when I say, yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing, then now I know I'm in a healing process. I know that the energy is moving out of the system. It's not Dr. Feelgood. And so now I call forward more willingness. I'm willing to do my work, and I'm going to do my best to keep on doing more and more of the right things, keep building my vitality, strengthening, and moving through those layers. And so for this young lady, it was just totally unconscious for her. And as soon as I said it, what did Dad, it was just like, oh my God, that's what's it. He used to take me out for ice cream. And here she is. This woman at that point was probably, I don't know, 60-ish. And she's eating ice cream like a little kid.
I wonder if she gave up the ice cream.
It dropped immediately. Once she was aware of it, she went back to the state where as a naturopath, or not actually a naturopath, but she might as well have been, as a person who's in that field, she was right back to her natural, like, I wouldn't touch that stuff with the 10-foot pole.
Wow.
That was instant for her. Once she got like, oh, that's what it is. The craving and the desire for it left.
Great.
And engage yourself or indulge yourself once in a while. Or
don't worry,
soften as
Michael.
you need to. You do, okay.
Right. Ice cream is but I never eat it without thinking, cow puss. Thanks a lot for that, Michael.
You're welcome. When I was a kid, I was brought up, and my mother would have felt herself deficient if she hadn't fed us meat 3 times a day. Meat is a stimulant. A lot of people use meat, and it's not because it's good for them or it gives them something valuable. It's just a stimulant to the structure. So just like people use coffee as a stimulant, meat can do the same thing. And I can remember when I first, started studying naturopathy and started to understand how the body worked, and that the human form is not designed. It will never thrive on it, but the human form is not designed to eat dead animals. It's just decaying flesh is not what the structure is designed to be supported through. And I knew that intellectually, but, I had eaten meat all my life, and it probably took me, 13, 14 years to transition to where I would look at a piece of meat and go, you want me to eat that? No, thank you, I'll pass. Like, no second thought. Say again?
Chicken too? Fish and chicken too?
Yeah, I'm talking the whole realm of, I mean, especially where it would be a problem for me. At home, I never ate meat. I always, was vegetarian, and, I'd chosen to be vegetarian, and that was it. But it was kind of interesting. I couldn't go into a restaurant and buy a meal that didn't have meat in it.
Wow.
That was kind of, and then, it took, in order for my physiology, and remember my heritage is Scottish, so, Scottish Highlands, meat eating, cows, that was, how many generations of that? But to get to the point where I was able to process through that fully, where the attraction, the resonance, the inclination toward eating a piece of dead flesh totally left me, took me about 13 or 14 years.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, if you suggested, well, we're going to go to a restaurant and have I'd almost throw up. Thank you very much. No, thank you. I'll pass. Like, there's no inclination whatsoever. But for that first 13 or 14 years after having chosen to be vegetarian, that energetic pattern, that's how long it took me to work through that one.
Wow.
And so if we're inclined to,
I was a vegetarian for quite a while, and I rarely eat meat, never eat red meat, but I do eat fish occasionally and chicken less often. But I maybe it's all in my mind. I think I need it. I've got this idea. Maybe that's all it is.
Well, if it's in your mind, until your mind changes, you'll probably need it.
Right. Also, you have to be really creative if you're a vegetarian, and I don't like cooking. I make big salads, and I put seeds in them and all kinds of things, but I always it doesn't feel heavy enough or something.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Michael, I'm not really arguing with you. It's just that I'm not as far along as you are by a long shot.
No, you probably need to be listening to your body, and when your body says you need meat, you should probably eat meat. And if you realize, like the alcoholic who says, I'm craving a drink, I need a drink, well, if there's a point, if you're really listening and tracking yourself, you'll know whether it's a drugged type craving or that there's something that you're not yet digesting. One of the worst things that somebody who's a heavy meat eater can do is, and people do this, is instantly overnight become vegetarian. They get themselves in deep trouble because there's so much protein in meat. I mean, we've been scammed by the meat industry. That's where the big bucks are, is in chickens and dairies and dead cows and dead pigs and dead, flesh. And the protein that's there, we've been sold this bill of goods about how we need all that protein. And the structure adapts when one eats that kind of toxic food all the time, adapts, and it learns to throw out the first protein that comes in. I mean, it throws protein out by the ton. If you stop eating that overnight and eat a vegetarian, a balanced vegetarian diet that has the proper amount of protein, it's still going to throw out that first protein that comes in, and people can become protein deficient. Now, there's never been anybody, you will never find a hospital record anywhere in America of anybody ever dying of a protein deficiency. It's just, it can't happen. But if their bodies have adapted to throwing off all that excess protein, and overnight they become vegetarian, the body's still throwing off that protein, they can end up with protein deficiency problems. And so, transitioning is important.
Wow. Thanks for the lesson. Yeah.
Delighted and honored. And I'm so delighted, Michael, to hear about your grandson.
Thanks. One last teeny question on the dietary side. I love feta cheese. I get it from sheep's milk. Is that any better than cow's milk?
2,000%. And actually, there's no such thing as cow's milk feta. I'm actually kind of surprised. Feta cheese means sheep from a goat cheese from a goat or a sheep. That's what feta means. And I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the feta industry, when the farmers started to come in and say, well, we're going to change the way we make our cheese and we're going to call this feta too, that they didn't shut them down and block them from doing that, because there is no such thing as cow's milk feta. I know you can go to every grocery store and there's a package labeled and feta, and it'll start out and say pasteurized milk. That's not feta cheese. It's just not. But it's slipped in under the radar, and most everybody thinks it is. But yeah, the protein molecule, actually, goat's milk and sheep's milk are, if you look at that molecule, it's almost the same as a human mother's milk. And so the products that come from it are a lot closer to human. Now, if you've got a body that is going to start out and come out of the animal at about 60 or so pounds, and you expect it to be 1,000 pounds within a year, you better get it lots and lots and lots of cow's milk. I mean, that's what it's designed for. Take a look around at the size of the bodies that are surviving on cow's milk, and they're following the pattern. It's great. You got a 60-pound body, you want to grow to a 1,000-pound body within a year, there it is. Cow's milk's perfect. But, we're the only animal that you will find in all of the creation that goes around sucking on the tip of another animal and eating their bodily fluids. And, there's no animal on the earth that even eats the bodily fluids of their own species after they reach maturity. There's a place for it. There's a reason for it. There are things there to cause building and growth, fat content and protein content and immunity, all sorts of things. And cow's milk is just perfect and great for cows. But if you look at its structure, it's nothing like, the fat content such of mother's milk. Sheep and goat are pretty close.
So,
yeah, and we eat actual feta cheese too. We can't really buy it anywhere here, but when we travel, within a couple-hour radius, and we're going through a city, I'll come back with half a dozen blocks of feta cheese, actual feta from sheep.
That is
Trader
music
Joe's one
to
of
my
the
ears.
one of the best places to buy it.
Which is one of the best places?
Trader Joe's.
Trader Joe's. Yeah, Costco has
Yep.
wonderful. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Michael.
And Costco and Sam's have a wonderful goat cheese too. Both of them have a really nice goat cheese that we really enjoy. It's almost like a cream cheese kind of goat cheese. It's really good.
Oh, nice. Nice.
And we use that pretty regularly. That's what goes on our tomato sandwiches once we pick them off the vine and slice them and want to put them on toast.
Yum. Yum.
It is yum.
All
for
right.
sure. All right, young lady. Well, we appreciate you and certainly hold the space for you and that young man, all those young men you're working with. It's pretty interesting that it's primarily the males in your family that are coming to you for support and healing. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's a nice thought. They're good boys, all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet. Well, let's join in the commitment to remove from the family system the traumas that these young men have had imposed on them from generations of interaction with fathers who were brutal.
Yeah.
And bring back the experience and the presence of love to them.
Right. Amen.
What a gift to give the world. Amen and a woman.
Yeah.
All right. Any other thoughts for you today?
No, I'm going to sign off and listen to the rest of the show.
All right. We appreciate you. Cherish you.
Thanks, Michael.
Okay. Blessings. Bye-bye. All right. Well, Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody out there on the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room? And thank you for that conversation.
Do you have a hand?
Susan? Oh, well, let's say hello.
Okay. It's Magda 828. You're on the air.
Welcome, young lady.
Thank you very much. I have been thoroughly enjoying the conversation between you and Susan. Nice to hear you, Susan. Oh, excuse me. I get a tickle. Be right back.
Okay. So it brings up annoyance when that happens, doesn't it? Like, oh, can't get rid of this silly thing. Give me water.
I just have some water, so let's see if this works. Okay, I'll be back.
Go for it.
I'm going to try again. Okay. So, what you guys were just talking about toward the end,
right.
Of course, Susan reminded me of something that I learned years and years and years ago from a therapist I was seeing, and I was complaining to her about how compulsive I was being about getting custard. You'll appreciate this, being ice cream lovers. I grew up in Milwaukee, and we had custard stands. So it's even rich in ice cream, yeah. And so she gave me a couple of clues. She said, well, different emotions will bring up the desire to use different drugs. And I don't actually remember how the emotions and the drugs went together. But one of the drugs was sugar, and another drug was caffeine was another one.
Right.
And nicotine was another, and I'm not sure if there were any more.
Case of morphine, milk. That's a powerful drug. The morphine in milk is very powerful and very addictive.
Yeah, maybe so. And so what I started to do after that, once I got clued into that, was to watch when I had these incredible cravings what I was craving and what I was feeling at that time. And then I would do some sort of work. I don't remember what I was doing then to explore what those feelings were generated from, what the trigger had been. And it was pretty darn successful. So I'm surprised that I ever forgot that little trick. And what I'm just thinking right now is that it would be helpful for me again to notice when I am definitely having a craving that I must have some of this or I must have some of that. Oh, salt was another one. Yes. I think the best thing for me to do is to stop everything if I can, depending upon where I am and what I'm doing, and sit down and do a worksheet over the feeling that I have, and it will then be revealed about, where that came from. What I really liked, too, about what she said, it was very gentle. She said, if you have these cravings, go ahead and find out what that's coming from. Find out what your feeling is, and then what it's coming from, and then do your work around that. And if you still want to have a piece of this or a cone or whatever, go ahead. And I found that I rarely ever still wanted that thing that had been so terrorizing me before. So I just plug that in for myself, and maybe Susan or anybody else might find it useful. Stop, do the worksheet, investigate, do the worksheet, and then, okay, if you still want that candy bar, go get it.
Yeah, be gentle with yourself. For sure.
Right.
That's important.
And another permission that I was given was when you decide to do it, to eat it, to consume it, whatever it is, enjoy it.
Enjoy it to the max.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if we're downing it with guilt, it's not really fun, and there also might be some concomitant physical energy that's getting stuck because of that guilt.
Right.
Yeah.
And just being conscious, doing any behavior and being conscious about it, even if it's something that the party says, I don't want to do this, being conscious is going to begin the transmutation of that drive, whatever's underneath it, for sure.
Yes. Yes.
Sounds like you got a good therapist.
Yeah, she was pretty terrific. Unfortunately, she moved to a different state. So I didn't get to continue working with her, but I did get a lot out of our time together.
Sounds like someone that might be worth looking up and just dropping a note and letting her know you're thinking about her and appreciating her.
Oh, what a good idea! Thank you.
Who knows? You never know what somebody might be ready to hear, and what kind of a difference you can make by giving that gift.
Yeah, lovely. That's lovely.
And with all of the Zoom things going on, a lot of therapists are doing Zoom meetings now instead of in person. I know Michelle's down in Mexico right now, and she's doing that with her clients. So get back in touch with her and Zoom with her.
Good idea. All right. Lovely. I was just remembering that when I have felt that kind of compulsion, thought I really need to put this in my mouth. That's what it usually is. It's something that goes in and satisfies me temporarily, ever so temporarily, with my taste buds. But when I have had those times when I just have to keep grabbing it, chewing it, swallowing it, grab, chew, swallow, the idea of stopping, and saying, wait a minute, let me do this first, and then I can come back and resume. I don't know. That'll be kind of interesting to experience. I mean, that's...
Well, as we wake up, bringing self love to conscious awareness is, a major key in the healing process in transmuting those lower energies that tend to become cravings.
Yes. Yes. And when I'm pretty clear that I have been doing my work, addressing my emotional stuff, whatever it might be, I don't have the cravings, period.
Right.
It always amazes me, like, oh, I would have killed for this yesterday, and today I really don't care.
Yep.
So
Progress.
that's the reason. Yeah, and that's the reason I'm saying this so I can hear myself say it. That's the reason to continue doing the cleansing that the worksheets provide the opportunity for on a regular basis, not only when I'm in need. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and go back and remember in Laws of Living, the discussion about regulatory speech. How does regulatory speech become that which regulates our behavior? First, we hear the conversation. We hear the words. Then the words are used to oneself out loud. They start to speak it. Then they become silent speech. We speak it to ourselves internally. And along that pathway, if the behaviors involved in or brought forward by those words are experienced to reduce stress, then it's going to proceed into the unconscious and it's going to become habit.
Yes.
And if we find that the habit is not one that's serving us, then you do the reverse. You consciously, purposely reverse the process, edge it out, acknowledge it, speak it, and speak the fact that you're ready to be finished with this and let it go. And, that speech is such a key part of the whole process.
Right. And that's what I was just thinking as you were explaining that. Okay, if I want to let go of something, I need to do the reverse step. Yeah. So can you give an example of what that might look like?
You mean speech going into someone's system?
Coming out, doing the reverse.
Well, let's look at the kid. I mean, children are born, created in the essence and the image of love, and that's the truth about who they are. The child who's told, you're bad, you'll never be any good, at some point starts to speak to themselves and think of themselves in their silent speech as, I'm no good, I'll never be any good, I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, I'm ugly, I'm, whatever that is. And so the child who's been told that, the child who behaves, or, the adult, somebody offers the adult a compliment, and what does the adult do? Oh, no, you don't have to I don't deserve that. You don't have to do that, rather than saying thank you. So the motion from, if someone's there to support them, say, well, I noticed that, one of the things you really crave is attention and a compliment, but when the attention and the compliment comes, I notice that you push it away. Have you noticed that? So now they've heard that speech. Then they might say, well, gee, I never thought of myself as pushing away when I say, oh, don't compliment me like that. And, yeah, I do like to get compliments, but then, yeah, I've noticed I do push away. So now I'm bringing that back forward in speech, and I'm negating that speech. Yeah, I see how that doesn't really work. So what am I going to do now? Oh, now the speech is going to become, so in the future when somebody compliments me, I'm just going to say thank you. Now, the next time somebody's sitting at the desk and somebody compliments them, they're probably not going to speak out loud and say, oh, yeah, I'll accept that compliment, but it's probably going to be, yeah, I can just receive that and say thank you. And now the whole speech system's changed. And when a compliment comes, rather than talking to themselves about how bad and evil and wrong they are and blah, 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 it's like, oh, thank you. They've changed the whole speech system. Okay. And the show's about to cut us off. So have a blessed day. All right, let's blessings. Okay, bye-bye.